Joining us is Nancy Wozniak, Learning Architect within the TLT Faculty Center. So Nancy, when students are working in groups, how do you ensure that they are all contributing equally to the project?
Well, one thing, let's go back to what Ayesha was talking about. You had a strong leader in that group, and each group needs a strong leader. You had the director, and she kept everyone on task. I use a collaborative rubric because I will break my classes into maybe 5 groups of 10 people. And in that collaborative rubric, it outlines everything they are supposed to be contributing to the group, and also you always have them rate the others in their group, and it's not a matter of, hey, I'll give you a 5 if you give me a 5, because they do that. They have to go down this rubric and cover these points, and that's part of the assignment. So it's very difficult for them just to give somebody a 5. And you also are observing. Also, clarify each person's contribution to the group. There should be some evidence. In Ayesha's case, that was when I went and saw the play and talked to the students. I mean, there was evidence just radiating in that room, the environment. Those students learned, and they took that drama class inside of them, and that was a lifelong learning experience.
So Ayesha, did you use a rubric for your class?
I did, and actually in talking to Nancy, because Nancy, so I said, how do you grade something like this if I decide to go out on a limb and have them, perform this play? And she said, well, why don't you have them come up with how they would like to be graded? Which initially I thought was just crazy. But then when I saw them having this very fruitful discussion about what was, pedagogically, intellectually useful about this exercise, I told them we need to come up with some parameters on which you will agree that I will grade you. And so we came up collectively with this rubric. I mean, just looking at essentially the different elements that they thought went into the making of a good performance.
Right.
And the other thing I should say, which Nancy said, pointing out roles that people are taking in a project like this being important, I told them they had to come up with a flyer, like as you would when you go to a play, outlining who did what, and that they had to agree that this was a good representation of the work that they had put in individually, right? And so they did hand out this flyer that they had made, just a kind of simple, thing, but it did in kind of playbill style outline clearly what each member had contributed, and I think that that's really crucial to their own sense of getting credit for their work, and as an indication of just how the group effort was distributed.
Now you mentioned going out on a limb in this project. You did feel you were taking quite a big risk in making these changes?
Not in terms of actually assigning something new, but in terms of the grading issue, absolutely. I mean, I think the hardest thing about projects like this and any kind of not kind of traditional assessment is how do you figure out how to grade this? And as I said to both of you before, I was lucky. They did an excellent job. The group worked really well. So I didn't have to really struggle with what I think could be some serious problems. Like, what if 3 people didn't do the work they were supposed to do? Do you give them a different grade? I had said to them, everybody takes the same grade. So everybody has to do the work, right? I'm not going to kind of distinguish. So if you stand together or you fall together. But I'm not sure how effective that would be in classes where the group dynamic was not good. What if they did a really poor job? How would I justify the kind of grading that I did? What I did finally is I wrote up a 1-page assessment, a written assessment, which I sent all of them, of the performance itself and what I thought worked, what I thought didn't work. In part because I felt that they needed something concrete to honor the effort they had put in, apart from simply, a grade. So
now, one of the things you did instinctively was create a sense of community from the start, even when the class was sluggish. You did include them in voicing their opinions on the course. Very important when you're doing groups is to, from the start, create that sense of community. Do an icebreaker, something, not just have them stand up and say, hello, my name is, and I come from Pennsylvania and I'm going to study journalism. That isn't an icebreaker. Right away, get them into groups and come up with questions or have them interview one another.
So you're talking about breaking the ice within the functional groups that are working together.
Get them from the very first day. When you're going over your syllabus, have them discuss the syllabus in groups, but create that sense of community in that class. And you won't have as many problems, isolated individuals. So right away, she was setting it up for the students to come together and work in a group.
I should say though, group work is hard. As a student, I hated group work. And so I think as a teacher, I have very mixed feelings about group work because I remember hating it and thinking it was just a way to kind of not do teaching, And so I think that Nancy's right. You have to be very careful about how you set it up and be very clear about what the goals are. Because I think that if students don't know that there are clear goals of this exercise, it can feel like busy work.
And that's what makes it difficult.
They feel like you're abdicating your role as a
right.
teacher.
So I think that there has to be some framework that clarifies why they're doing what they're doing. One of the other things I use in my classes all the time is peer review. And so I have like writing workshops in class where they will do peer review either in groups or with individual partners. And I find that it's very useful, especially the first time they do it, to take that 15-20 minutes and really lay out and discuss with them what the purpose of this exercise is. And I'll often ask them, well, have you done this before? And many of them have, and most of them hate it. And we talk about what they didn't like about the experience. And I think it needs to be really guided and structured and feel as though you as a teacher have really put thought into this. It's not simply, oh, I'm not prepared today, so you can be in groups. I think that's really important. And about the ice breaking, I will say in the drama class, in my desperation, initially, one of the things I did is we were doing Greek drama, which is hard to teach and it's a hard genre. But I would make them stand up as a group of 20 people and read the parts of the chorus, which were in fact performed by groups. And initially, they were really hesitant to do this. And it's very hard to read as a group in one voice. But I think that meant that they realized how hard it was because it's difficult to coordinate 18 voices reading at the same pace. And they also realized the effect of having a big group of people reading and chanting almost in this way. And I think after a while, they really enjoyed it. So every time we'd have a chorus, they'd sort of say, are we reading now? And I think that some of those sorts of things that seem really hokey in a certain way can make a big difference because they break the rhythm of a class.
Okay. Ayesha and Nancy, thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thank you.
If you have any questions for either of your guests, please post them on the blog on the TLT website at tlt.stonybrook.edu, where we'll also post the direct contact information for both of our guests. I'm Graham Glynn. I hope you join me for another exciting episode of Innovations in Education.